All right, we are in the studio corner with Bradley Gosnell. What's up, man?
Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm happy to be here, man. Really
So,
happy.
You sent me a little email. You know, I ask all my guests to send me an email, a little bit of something about themselves. And first off, it was hilarious. I expected nothing less. But there was a lot of stuff in there. But the first thing I stumbled upon a con. I'm here to con you.
Contradictionary. What? Don't take my money, man.
Was your YouTube channel with your sketch comedy group,
Yes.
Safety Patrol.
That's right.
And I watched a few videos, but before we even get into that, the Chevy video. You guys did a parody of the Chevy commercials where they bring the real people in and show them the cars, and I literally lost my shit. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
I don't know how, I mean, I don't even know how many takes you guys had to do to get all those one-liners, but
Honestly,
holy shit.
So we filmed that. We just essentially found a location and filmed for 2.5 hours.
Just content.
Just straight through. We didn't redo anything. We didn't go back. We just like hit record. We stopped when we had to change out tapes. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the joke's going to survive for 14 more videos, but hopefully more to come. But yeah, it's essentially just us. We decided that we would that we all wanted to be on the same team for the most part. That we were all just these awkward people, and it was 4 against 1. Grayson, who's playing the Chevy deals seller.
I don't know how he kept such. He was so composed.
He was so good.
I would have been on the floor. The shit you guys were saying, especially talking to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus.
He was great too, and he did a great job of. We gave him the horrible task of having to rein us back in. So the sketch is essentially the real world people.
Yeah.
And we're just the messiest, foolish people ever. We just make no sense.
Like the fucking craziest people ever.
Yeah, we like Fords instead of shit. We're just making this guy's life hell. And he had to not only like stay on top of it and also be humorous, like stay within the world, but also sort of bring us back. For 2 hours, this guy was doing that.
Yeah.
So Grayson was incredible.
Yeah, that was mind blowing. I mean, everything about it was hilarious. It wasn't a single character in that sketch that wasn't prominent. Like it was.
Yeah.
What was it, like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, or something like that?
I'm not sure what the final one came down to. Probably around 3 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it was so short, and I was just like, I can't believe that was that short.
Yeah.
I would have watched that for like an hour.
Well, we got more.
Anyway, but YouTube channel.
Yes.
So what led you to the route of a YouTube channel, a sketch comedy group?
Jeremy and Grant and I and a friend of ours named Dan, who was initially in the group a while back, we all went to college together. Went to TCU, actually with Grayson, the guy who played the Chevy dealer. Yes, I was just struggling with that earlier. Thanks. So we all did improv together out there, and we're used to just doing comedy together. And so we all moved out here to Hollywood, and said, let's keep a good thing rolling. We did a little bit of improv, but
like improv at clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah, a little bit of that. But most of Jeremy and I both jumped into UCB. To put our foothold in kind of the indie community, as it were. And Grant was going to grad school down in Chapman for directing. He got into the grad school program.
Oh, wow.
To get his master's in directing.
Jesus.
I know, right? And the guy's brilliant. He's every so often I'll watch him work, and it was like, oh, I green screened this. We have a video coming up called Dumbledone, and it's Delaney, who's in the group now, playing a Dumbledore who is just over it. And it's like the opening speech of every year, like the but she's just done. She's just she's not having any of this bull,
Oh, wow.
And so I was watching Grant work with the green screen on it, and he was green screening out the original Dumbledore, and then when he was where they had to remove the Dumbledore, photoshopping in the back windows of the Great Hall. And I'm just watching him do this, going, how on earth do you just... He's like, he didn't take a class on it. He's just been doing it and getting better and better and better. So he's incredible. I know, right? That's how you do everything.
Yeah.
So he got into the directing program down there. And so we decided that we wanted to do sketch. We did 1 sketch a week in college for our improv troupe. And when we moved out here, we decided that we wanted to try to do quality over quantity. because we've just been doing 1 week, just however we got to get it out. And so I think it felt good for us to.
It's part of the growth.
Yeah, and label that change. It felt like if we call it change, then we're maturing, you know? And we really went into it thinking of YouTube as the platform, but not the genre of video that we were doing, whatever that means. And, you know, it's just the best place to put up content, you know?
Yeah. Well, video especially. It's
video
made for
content.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, YouTube, it's great. It's amazing. And I was listening to one of your other guests talk about doing music on YouTube and getting gigs from that.
Yeah.
And I listen to most of my, well, I don't know about most, but somewhere around 40% of my music on YouTube, you know?
Still till this day.
Because of covers, and I like watching music videos, and I like watching live performances.
Yeah.
And I love, you know, Spotify, and, you know, that's my driving music, but whenever I can, or, you know, whenever it makes sense when I'm feeling, it's YouTube. And I watch, like, you know, most of my content's on YouTube.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was having a discussion with my drummer the other day, and we were talking about where we want to start releasing some, you know, testing, recording tracks and stuff like that.
Right.
And he brought up YouTube, and and it was kind of a weird thing to me. I was like, don't you like release music on Spotify? He's like, dude, honestly, I sit there on YouTube and I discovered like 90% of the music I listen to till this day by scrolling through YouTube.
Right.
I'm like, they're untouchable.
Yeah,
it's untouchable.
I mean, that was my genesis into, because you sort of grow up with the music that your parents listen to.
Yeah.
And then there's that moment where you sort of listen to your own bands, and you didn't discover them, of course, because they've been around for, at least for me. But, you know, when I started listening to Pink Floyd and The Who and, you know, Queen and all those, pretty much everything not the Beatles and the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
It was all YouTube. It was all just like watching Roger Daltrey swing a mic around.
Yeah.
And I would just sit there and rewind it and watch it again, and rewind it and watch it again and watch, you know.
It's such an experience.
It was such an experience, yeah.
It's as close as we can get to it.
It's true. It's true.
And yeah, I mean that's a really, really special thing to be able to, like, after this much time, to sit there and watch a video of this dude that did this fucking 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And it still feels that good.
Yeah, dude. It's when something you know, life, spirit, soul, energy, whatever, jumps through YouTube. It's almost like it's jumping through time. You know.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. It blows my mind.
It's hard to harness that without the visual effect too.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So regarding a YouTube channel, you guys, I mean, you guys have a fair amount of subscribers. You guys release videos. They're fucking awesome.
Thank you for saying that.
I loved it. I had such a good time. I watched some of them today even. I was like, I got to watch these just to get a laugh in.
We're going to quote you, a fair amount of subscribers.
Well, hopefully you'll get some more after this.
That's true. That's true.
World, I mean, I'm not a big, you know, on the show, like, to promote specific things. I'm all about, you know, everyone promoting themselves. But shit, if anybody's listening, go check out Safety Patrol on YouTube.
Yes,
that is so funny.
Well, thank you so much, man.
So funny. So with the YouTube channel, you know, you guys have been doing it. You guys have some experience. In your opinion, from what you've learned so far, what would you say is the necessary things? What makes a good channel to you? Like, ones that you follow, one that you're making. Like, what are the things that are needed for it?
It's a great question, and I'm sure the answers differ wildly depending on what's popular now. You know,
absolutely.
What does
Brad think?
What does Bradley think? Well, you know, Bradley's not out there watching. There's all these crazy videos of, you know, 7-year-olds playing with toys, and they have a jillion subscribers and a jillion views.
Side note, I read an article a few months back. An 11-year-old, I think it's 11-year-old kid or 8-year-old kid, one of them, reviews toys on YouTube.
Yeah.
This kid makes over $10 million a year.
Right? Crazy. Because people send them toys for free because it's like, hey, free advertising.
Yeah.
And that's where the market's weird, when it becomes like entertainment and what we were talking about, sort of like artistic, exploration. How do I, jump back into the past? And then that,
It's wild.
Anyway, it's crazy.
Continue. Sorry.
So for me, and this is something that I think has been not a recent revelation, but something that I'm trying to get better at, is people like being friends with people on YouTube. Whether or not it's a musician or a comedian or a storyteller or a vlogger, or even someone that reviews the news or writes video essays about Lord of the Rings or whatever.
Yeah.
Anytime you feel like I'm connecting to the person making this content, it's such an intimate situation. We're watching on our computers or on our phones, and we sort of take the veneer away from all the levels of producers, and there's just all of a sudden 1 or 2 fingerprints on it as opposed to hundreds.
Yeah.
And if you can elevate that and make the audience feel, oh, this person's talking to me, then you have something special. And the only way to do that is sort of just be more okay with yourself, I think, right?
I'm a little thrown back. I was not expecting an answer that amazing. Thanks. That's a very valuable piece of information you just shared.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the hardest thing to do. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to, one of my favorite YouTube videos of all time. Gosh, I forgot the person's name.
It's a little contradicting.
I know, right? Yeah, sorry. We'll go back. Well, it's this guy that makes these shortest. Someone's gonna live tweet me. I'm kidding. These short little absurd videos that are just strange, abstract videos that are, for example, one of them is him singing. It's so funny. Do re mi, I'm incomplete, and that's it. That's how it ends. Or, thanks for checking in, I'm still a piece of garbage. And that's it. And for some reason, it tickles my fancy like nothing else. It's short, it's weird, you get in, you get out, it's sharp. And I can't imagine someone sat down and gave him advice on how to do that video. I think it was just do it a bunch, and so, what makes you laugh will make other people laugh. And people want to feel like, this guy's making himself laugh, or this guy's, giving himself the juice. This guy's making himself feel good. And that's making me feel good. In this world, it's strange that we're getting this empathy through technology. And, you could look around and say we're more or less empathetic or more or less knowledgeable or however that works. But I think what's amazing is that even with those discussions going on, if you distill what makes specifically YouTube and social media attractive to people and even addictive to people, is that they feel like this person's being honest. This person's being authentic with me,
But there's also the other side of people faking an image, which is why I think YouTube. That's true. YouTube's pretty, almost unintentionally, so good about that. Mm-hmm. Because like you said, it's about wanting to feel like you're friends with that person. And you said wanting, you have to accept who you are. Right. And for you, you're an actor. You guys have to act as certain people, certain characters in sketch comedy, even. Yeah. And you're pretending to be something else, but who you are comes through that video, and that's that as much as skill as that takes, it's also a lot of talent, which is why YouTube videos I think are easy to watch, and there's certain people you kind of you connected with that one guy singing Do Re Mi, even watching your video as personally watching your video of the Chevy commercial, that thing was hilarious. You guys were playing these roles, but at the same time I did feel like I was in that room watching these crazy people talk. I felt not alone. I felt really good, and it was very addictive. I ended up watching 5 other videos after that. I didn't stop. And there's all that science of chemicals in the brain to click on things, which totally works, but it's, the content that you are clicking on really means something, the content you go back to watch.
That's true.
And I think you guys really harness that. And
thanks, man.
So I really, really love that answer. That was very insightful to me. Thanks, I learned a little bit there.
Oh, well, I'm learning a little bit as we go. And, you were right. Something you said that there's this whole side of YouTube that is also the opposite side of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
I've clicked on YouTube videos just, because part of being on a YouTube sketch team is trying to watch other YouTube sketch videos, right? And just kind of seeing what's out there. And it's amazing how many incredible, let me phrase, it's amazing how many subscribers and how many views these videos get that, to me, break that rule that I just said. Yeah. Right? How many, it's like, whoa, these 3 people, they're playing this ridiculous challenge, and I don't believe any of them. And I don't think they're really friends. They're just wearing colorful t-shirts, and the editing is just quick and poppy, and digitally
stimulating
and stimulating. That's the perfect word for it. Yeah, it's just stimulation. So it's probably a combination of both. You're right. There's this clickability aspect that even a good artist, and what we can take away from YouTube at this point, someone who's artistically meritable in their work, also wants their work to be clickable or enjoyable, or
of course, it's rule number 1. You got to entertain.
Right, songs are written in for a reason.
Yeah,
they're not all of them. But someone once explained rock and roll to me as something you can go pa 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 pa, and I don't know if that's the definition of rock and roll.
I wouldn't call it the definition, but I think they were getting at something along the lines of beat and follow.
Yeah, exactly. But there's something in that triggers everything. or triggers something in a human.
You know, my last guest, actually, Alec Finn, he's a producer and whatnot. And we actually talked about production and like going after a song. And he said something that really changed my view on music. And even what you said about rock and roll, he's like, one of the questions he asked the artists that he works with, or even himself, is before we sit down to produce a song, or before we sit down to really go after the song, how do you want it to make your body move?
Wow.
And that just blew my mind.
Wow.
And I think that's very similar to what you're getting. I mean, it's not just how your body moves, but even in a YouTube video, you know, what do you want? Do we want people to think that, you know, we're the best of friends, we're doing something crazy, like we're Jackass, or, you know, like you said, we're wearing colorful shirts, we're not actually friends, but that's not the goal here. We want them to be super stimulated with all these editing and all this crazy shit we do, or do we want them to laugh, or do we want them to connect with us, or do we want them to be confused at how weird we are, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's a serious question you have to ask, especially approaching YouTube. I mean, because it's not just the audio side of things, it's a fucking visual.
It's the Wild West.
It's the Wild West. Yeah. YouTube, the Wild West. Trademark.
YouTube, the Wild West.
So sketch comedy, that's something I do not have a lot of knowledge on. I enjoy it a lot.
Me too.
I was at a comedy club a few weeks back watching actually one of my older guests.
Okay, cool.
And the buffer time in between sets was an improv group. And I thought for improv, I think that's to me, it seems incredibly difficult, especially in front of an audience just staring at you. Like, that's fucking nuts.
Right.
But they did a pretty good job, but there's also a lot of parts where like, I don't think they're onto something. I think they're falling off, this and that. So, but I couldn't really explain it to myself because I don't know enough detail. So for sketch comedy, like break it down for me. Like, what are the necessary foundations for a comic sketch?
If I'm doing a sketch live, it's got to be a good show.
Okay.
It's got to be a good show. I see a lot of sketch shows where the transitions are sloppy, the stage picture's wrong. Just like on film, when you frame something, you're telling a story. If it's a two-shot, it's a one-shot of someone stirring the frame. You know, how far back are we? And the same is true with stage, and sort of the stage craft of performance is something that's been, is so part of my DNA. I've been doing stage my whole life, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I built my bones. And so I watch a lot of stage live sketch shows, and I'm bumped out of the funny because it's sloppy. And it's not like it's poorly written so much as just the handwriting is illegible to me. A sharp entrance, clear blocking. They just don't stand in a line.
Yeah.
Just stop standing in lines. It will make your visuals more dynamic. And the transitions are important. We've done a couple live shows. Safety Patrol has. We've done 2 shows at the Comedy Central stage, at the Hudson Theater, and then we did an Out of Bounds festival in Austin. And we have videos for our transitions. We have quick changes. We rehearse the show as much as we rehearse the sketch.
Yeah.
Because the audience doesn't get to hit pause. They're always engaged. And if you lose them, you have to get them back again. So, we ran into a problem with Out of Bounds festivals because we like to tech our shows pretty heavily, to be honest with you, maybe a little too heavily. We know exactly when we want our sound cues to happen. We time out our quick changes so we know exactly when to come back on stage again.
Yeah.
And we want it to feel like
professional run thing.
Yeah, we want to do the thing for real, And so, then the Out of Bounds people were phenomenal. Very kind, very nice people. But we ran into some difficulties because I think we didn't communicate what we wanted out of the tech, or they said they could do videos and it was a little more difficult than we thought. But we did a show, and so our second sketch was called Cussing Kids.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And
relatable.
I know. And we haven't released it on YouTube yet, so this is a special behind the scenes for all you studio corner heads out there. So the sketch is essentially a bunch of 12-year-olds playing video games in the basement, and they're like, "Oh man, being 12 rocks." It's like, we
Does it?
To these kids it did. I mean, they didn't know any better. We can play, but soccer's cool, and we like mac and cheese. And this one kid goes, and also I learned how to cuss. And they're like, "Oh man, no, that's dangerous, man. You shouldn't do that." And he's like, "Oh no, check it out." Fuck. And then dubstep music and lights and this crazy video behind them of just like the most psychedelic, and we're on stage throwing ourselves around just like, and the joke is essentially two people really jive with the music and they're like, whoa, that's awesome, let's do it again. And one of them is just having a horrible time. He's like sweating, getting nauseous, just in the corner like, yeah, don't do it, stop. Then we just do that again and again and again. So that's the sketch. And so
with that visual and that dubstep drop, all that, stuff, it like, just like, oh, funny the 12-year-old said fuck, but that kind of, that live experience, no different than being on stage as a musician, like, pyrotechnics or, lights and this and that, drum stages going up, whatnot. It really, doesn't necessarily change the song, but it really adds to the experience when you go to listen to it live.
And when you expect that as an artist, you're setting yourself up for success, right?
Absolutely.
If you know the drummer's coming up behind you, you're going to, strum your guitar and sort of angle your body in a way that really accents the cool thing that's happening. If you have pyrotechnics going up, your hand better well be up in the air and you better be, straddling a freaking microphone, whatever. Yeah. And so if that happens, so essentially our video did not work.
Oh, man.
It did not work at all. And so we hit this reset button and we're like, oh, man, dude, I thought something crazy was going to happen, but it didn't. Let's try again. And we look up to and we're like, all right, I'm going to try one more time. Fuck. And it still doesn't work. It still doesn't work.
Were they just not playing it or just...
So behind us, there's like, you get the desktop with like Word and all that stuff, and you see a mouse like frantically going around trying to click our video, and we're just like, oh my Jesus. Gosh. We're just losing our minds. And we... so we sort of work our way through it. I forgot what we did, but we just sort of like... Oh man, okay, and then finally we just kind of pressed on, being like, I guess sort of handing the audience the joke and letting them sympathize with us, and then they got the sound to work in the middle of it, and so we were like, okay, we're gonna do it really, really fast for you guys, and it became this whole ordeal, but we walked off stage and we really had it in for us because. Like every one of our sketches has at least something in the background.
Oh Jesus!
I know we had this one sketch with all this Western music, and it didn't work. We have a sketch that the sketch isn't about the sound cue, but there's just that boom boom.
Yeah. Add to the experience.
Exactly. The seatbelt sign is now on. Please sit down if you're in the restroom or whatever. And like, oh okay, that just grounds us in the airplane without having to do exposition. So
walking off the stage, obviously, you guys bombed. Not that you bombed, but like part of it was kind of a bomb. It's a little bit discouraging, I imagine. A little kind of like Yeah. What did you walk away with? Like, what did you learn? What did you understand about what you're doing, and especially on a stage?
I think we did a couple different things. One of them was, perhaps to our discredit, is that just to sort of save the environment, we sort of just let the audience behind the curtain, and they're like, we're just like, hey. This isn't working. We got here earlier this morning, but this is what's supposed to happen. And comedy, what's nice about comedy and what may be different about comedy and music is that, and this isn't a rule necessarily, but with comedy, you're always punching up.
Yeah.
Because if you punch down, you're a bully,
Yeah.
So you always are constantly reminding the audience that don't worry about me.
Yeah.
I'm nothing. I'm no one. I'm just making fun of the world because I'm this poor, struggling, loser of a... psychopath or whatever whatever comedian does to sort of remind
you have
the
to
audience.
fall victim to something almost.
Exactly, you're 100% right. And I'm sure, and at least my experience with music is almost the opposite. Like
you have to be a god up there.
I want to worship this person.
Yeah.
We were talking about Roger Daltrey earlier. Where
yeah.
It's like, this guy's this rock god. We have that phrase, rock god.
Yeah.
And so I guess we used that to our advantage, where we knew just as comedians, we had on our side the ability to humble ourselves and keep humbling ourselves and keep humbling ourselves to the point where the audience was laughing at us. And that's fine. We just need to get laughs,
Yeah.
And so it almost became, every sketch has its own game or its own joke or its own, reoccurring thing, depending on what your philosophy in comedy is. But like the game of the show became these actors versus tech. And it was like once
it's like recreating the theme.
Exactly.
Like rolling with the punches. Like,
100%.
You break a string on stage, do something else. You fuck up a song, throw a jam in there. I've done that. Really? I remember I was playing it was the second show I played. It was at the House of Blues, and it was like a packed house.
Woo!
And I was like 3 songs in, and I went to go sing the song, and this song had a lot of a lot of lyrics and a lot of runs, like fast lyrics, and I fucked up like so bad.
Really?
And no one noticed because I fucked up, and literally the moment I knew I didn't remember the next like 3 verses, I literally just started shredding.
Right.
Started jamming, and it killed. But it's like moments like that. Like, so what you're saying is with your show, it's like that was like one of those moments where something just wasn't working out, and there's nothing you could do to fix it. So you change the theme of what you're doing.
Exactly.
It's like now it's like you said, the comedy group against the tech, like,
right.
which is fucking awesome.
It was fun. It worked.
That's entertainment.
And we all sort of like subconsciously agreed on it.
Accepted it.
Yeah. It was like, okay, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Okay, was that you at the House of Blues?
Yeah.
Was that the biggest mess up you've had performing live?
Ooh, that's a fucking good question. No, the biggest mess up I had performing live, which isn't, I mean, looking back, it's not even that big of a mess up. I prep like a monster for my sets.
Really?
And it's easy because, I mean, it's just me with the acoustic guitar, so it's like only vocal mic, acoustic guitar plugged in kind of thing.
Less coordination.
Yeah,
we should learn from you.
But I was playing the Mint in LA, and I was really stoked because, you know, the Mint, right? Woo! And I got there, and it was fairly busy, but it was one of those shows that was very humbling, like you said.
Right.
Kind of pay your dues kind of show, where there was like probably 40 feet between the stage and the bar, and there was like 100 people at the bar just packed full talking.
No.
And I play really hard on my guitar, so it's not like it's background noise at all.
Right.
But so I started playing the set.
You destroy your guitar.
I got dents in my guitars.
I've seen this guy play live, and I'm always nervous for the guitar.
I got dents. I'll show them to you.
Really? I'm sure. I'm sure.
But I remember I was playing, and like 3-4 songs in, there's like 5 or 6 people just standing randomly in that open space. It's really awkward. You know, but you know, I keep going, I keep doing my thing, and I go to play one of my songs, and I forget the intro, and I play it, and I stop, and I panicked. This was very early on in my, like, you know, pay your dues kind of gigs.
Sure.
And I start over, tried it again. I fucked it up. I think I tried it through, and this was like a 10-second intro that I fucked up like 5 times in a row.
Whoa.
And then I literally just like, fuck it. So I played another song, which ended up being totally bad. It was a heavier song. I just went for it. So that was definitely, in my opinion, for me, judging myself, I'd say that was the biggest fuck up. Other than that, I mean, there's been a lot of like mess ups, rearrange the lyrics, but nothing not the audience would notice. That was definitely one the audience would noticed.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you started and you stopped.
It's like, what the fuck is this guy doing up here? It was a Sunday night too. I was like, what am I doing here?
Do you think like if the audience was involved and engaged and you had that like kind of energy communication with the audience, that you would have handled that mess up better?
Oh, 100%. I love people. I love socializing. A lot of reason why I started this. I love being on stage, and I love playing music, and I love interacting with the audience, whether it's while I'm playing, making faces, moving around, grabbing the attention, or in between the, you know, sets, talking to them, fucking with them. Because I've been to so many shows where it's like one dude on stage where they just sit there and they play their fucking songs.
Right.
Whether they're good songs or not, we just sat there and listened to you. It's like, I could do this at home.
Right.
I'm here for a live experience, whatever that may be. I had a band on a few weeks ago, Mr. Call, and their singer Joe was talking about how he doesn't want to talk in between songs because they just want to play as much music as possible.
Really?
And I liked what he said. He had a lot of good things to say about it. But for the band, for what they're doing, it works perfectly. But for me, I can't just play song after song after song because you lose the audience. So I love to interact, and that energy changes everything. I remember the first time I really experienced that was my first show at the Baked Potato. I had gone through something.
A baked potato.
I had been through something. Let me just say.
if you're at a baked potato, ladies and gentlemen, you've been through something.
Well, I had been through something, and I hadn't slept or eaten in 3 days.
Wow.
It was a rough 3 days. I think I maybe had like 2 hours of sleep.
Wow.
Didn't even go to my bed. I was on the couch.
Right.
And I barely ate anything. I think the first meal I had was like an hour before the show, and I was like dying. So I get up there, I have an hour set, and there was like 75 people in that tiny little club.
Okay.
And
I've never been to the Baked Potato.
Oh, dude, it's one of the most famous jazz clubs in all of LA.
Really?
The oldest one. The biggest cats in the world play there, dude.
Really?
Oh, you and me are going. That's what we're doing. You and me are going to the Baked Potato.
All right. Okay. It's a date. I like it.
But I was playing, and I was just obviously low on energy, no shit. And I literally felt myself dying out. Like, I was 3 songs in. I had probably 45 minutes left of that set, and I was dying out. And I just randomly started talking to I had a lot of people there for me. I knew them. And there was a random dude, you know, I think it was like a Tuesday night, random dude sitting in the front eating a big-ass baked potato, and I just started talking to him. just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
I just started talking to him, and we became friends. I'm on stage, and there's like 75 people watching me.
Yeah.
And literally after that conversation, something changed. The energy in the room, the audience felt like they could be a part of it, because it's such a taboo feeling. Like, oh, they're on stage, I'm not on stage. It's like, and I always say this. Musicians, anybody on stage doing any sort of performance, whatever it is, needs to understand that they are there for the show as much as the audience is.
Right.
When I play my music, I'm listening to it just as much as the audience is. So I try to treat myself like an audience member on stage, like I'm talking to them, and then play my songs, do my job.
Yeah.
So that's a big rule I have when I step on there. But
I love that, man.
But yeah, I mean, it's so important because there's nothing worse than a disconnect, especially in a live experience.
And for all you studio corner heads out there that haven't seen High live, you do have such an expressive face.
Oh yeah.
You know, you take up a lot of space. You're like an imposing figure.
Hell
you know, your energy takes up space, and I go on a journey with your music, and because you're stuck to a mic and your hands are busy, it exudes through your face and, you know, your eyes, or if your eyes are closed or whatever. So, you know, it's brave man doing a podcast, because, you know.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. It's very, very kind of you.
I love what you said. There's some of my favorite sort of ideas about theater, and again, you know, I sort of broke my bones or made my bones. I don't know what's that saying? I made my bones, I sharpened my teeth.
I don't know that saying, but I'm going to trust you on whatever you throw at me.
It's like, well, how would you say it? I went to, you know, we're like I did my 1,000 hours.
Paid my dues.
I paid my dues.
Yeah.
I paid my dues in the theater. And so I love theater, and as an art form, it's very close to my heart. And one of the things that's people are trying to do in theater, or at least my favorite discussions and beliefs about theater nowadays, are, you know, the big question is, I'll start with it. The big question is, what does theater, live performance have that movies don't, right? And it's not the effects. No theater will ever have bigger effects than a movie.
That would be a little concerning.
That'd be a little concerning. Wow. There's some crazy operas out there, though. There's some phenomenal stage out. There was this opera.
Michael Bay's opera. Everybody died.
Transformers, the opera.
Oh my God.
That's beautiful. Oh, Optimus. Oh, Optimus Prime.
Opera Bumblebee. Wow. Sorry, you got me on like I'm just this is running through my head right now.
Yeah. Well, how could it not? Gosh, I would see that though.
Oh yeah, you'd have
100%.
You'd have to.
Yeah,
Michael Bay doing an opera. What kind of explosions are you going to contain in a fucking live performance?
Impossible. I imagine, because, you know, Michael Bay's for those circling shots.
Okay.
Where, you know, the classic one is someone's in Bad Boys, when the guy's standing up and the camera's just circling him, and you're like,
it's like one of the most like legendary scenes in movie history.
Exactly, yeah. Right. And so I imagine this opera is just the audience rotating around a character super fast.
Yeah, moving seats.
Wow. So what can theater do that film can't do, essentially?
Yes.
And
one of my
the
questions.
larger question. Oh, hey, look at that. Well, we can save it for then if you'd like.
No, that's pretty much what's next. I wanted to dive into that.
Perfect. And the answer is, you know, the live performance, someone being there. You're a part of the experience, and that's the obvious answer. So the question then becomes, as storytellers, as actors, as producers, writers, directors, people involved in theater, what's everything that we can do what's everything that we can do to remind the audience that they're there, right? To take a passive, observant audience and make them active viewers or active participants. And one of my favorite theater companies, and I can't say I'm incredibly well versed, is a Drunk Punch. It's in London, and they did a run of one of their shows in New York for a long time, for high critical acclaim, called Sleep No More. But essentially what they do is they take these classical pieces of literature, art, and they do these massive interactive experiences with them. So Sleep No More was in New York. It was Macbeth, and it was in this block-wide building that they emptied out and 4 stories tall, and each floor was a different setting. There was like a grand hall, and there was this room that was just like a cobble street. in London with the newspaper and everything. And then there was a street there was a room that was just like cornfields and all sorts of stuff. And you just wandered around for the first 30 minutes, just wandered around this place. And actors started to trickle out a little bit as you just sort of roamed around. And you could either stay in one space or you could follow an actor. And it was just, you had to pursue the story. You had to chase.
Holy shit, that's
what you wanted
genius.
to see. It was incredible, man.
Oh my god.
It was one of a kind experience. And
wow, you could choose to follow one's journey.
Exactly. And you had to. That's the thing. I suppose you could just sit down and see what passes by, and maybe that's what you want. But for me anyway, it was if you don't get off your ass and follow these characters, you're gonna miss something, man. And it's an incredible scenario. There's a story of Macbeth, and from my understanding of it, I'm not sure, they had 2 or 3 main scenes that they gathered everyone for, and those are those big plot scenes.
Yeah.
But other than that, they sort of had the plot on this loop. And what was really exciting about it was that you could follow characters who left stage in Shakespeare's Macbeth. So what's Banquo doing, when Lady Macbeth and Macbeth are having their famous "Are we going to kill him or not?" scene?
Yeah.
And so I'm familiar with the plot, and I'm following around Banquo. And the music was incredible because the music syncs up from room to room. Like there's never this jagged moment.
Like I just entered a totally different world.
Right, exactly. It's sort of like it really cushions you as you walk around.
Gotta love music.
Oh my gosh, music's incredible, man. And so I'm watching this guy. I'm watching a son. I did air quotes. The characters. A son give his father a shave, essentially. And I know, because of the plot, that this guy is about to be killed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the king I'm talking about. And but he doesn't know that, and his son doesn't know that. But there's no dialogue. There's no dialogue in the show whatsoever. It's all movement. And there's this beautiful swelling music, and I'm aware that somewhere off stage there are 2 characters planning on killing this guy.
Yeah.
And I'm in this scene right here.
Holy shit! What a
incredible
fucking genius experience.
It was insane, man. I was there with my family. My mom, when Macduff finds out that spoiler alert for those of you who haven't read, when Macduff finds out that his
it's been
children
a long time. I think there's no more spoilers.
I think so. Luke's the son of Vader, by the way. So when Macduff finds out that his wife and children have been assassinated, he takes off running, and these actors ran, they sprinted. They suggest wearing running shoes to this thing so you can keep up. So my mom's chasing after this dude, right? Chasing and chasing and chasing. He's turning this way and that way. You don't know what. Other audience members are like, "Whoa, oh my gosh, this guy's running past me," and she's close behind him, and he gets into a room and he closes the door behind him and he locks it, and it's him and my mom and another person, and they're just in this room with this guy, this little closet area, and he sits down in this chair and weeps. Just collapses, and she's just standing there back against the wall.
Holy fuck!
4 feet from the guy, going, "Oh my gosh, I can't ignore this," right?
Oh my god!
And then he has his experience, and whenever he hears his cue or whatever, he opens the door and walks out with the resolve to go take revenge, right? And there's just not an experience as an audience you can have with an actor that's more engaging, more active. You wouldn't get that if you didn't sprint.
Yeah. So that's the extreme of an on-stage acting performance, of experiencing it. So, our mutual friend Jared,
yes.
he's spoken a lot about some plays that you've written.
Mm-hmm.
So you obviously, you're experienced in writing and, obviously acting and whatnot. So with that being the extreme, the ultimate experience of on stage, with what you've done, how do you go about getting as close to that as possible when you're on your stage, especially performing your own play?
That's a good question. That's a great question. I'm not sure. So the play that Jared's talking about and that you're asking about was a play that a friend of mine, his name's Dan Florin, he was going back to Safety Patrol. He's one of the guys in Safety Patrol. He's since left and pursued bigger and better things in sketch comedy. And Safety Patrol has since been
different
very
things.
Different things in sketch comedy. That's right. I'm not bitter. And since he's left, Delaney Milbourne, who is in the Chevy video, has joined, and we're really, really lucky to have her.
She was great in that video, by the way.
Yeah, she's, gosh.
She was with the pills. And
yeah. Oh, so funny.
Great one.
So funny, man.
It's an inside joke if you haven't watched it, so go watch it so you're in on the joke.
Yeah, pause the podcast, go watch the video, and then come back and laugh with us.
Yeah.
So we wrote a play. It's called Gun in a Motel Bible, and it was inspired by a Beatles song, Rocky Raccoon. And for those of you who don't know the Beatles song, pause it, come back to the podcast. But it's Rocky Raccoon.
If they pause and go listen to the Beatles, they might not come back to the podcast.
That's true. There's a lot to
and
get
I'd be
through.
okay with that.
Honestly, yeah. If you haven't listened to the Beatles, just stop everything you're doing
and take a day.
Just take a day, go
Maybe
somewhere.
Another day for recovery because you're about to have your heart ripped out of your chest.
Oh my gosh, yeah, incredible. So Rocky Raccoon, Paul McCartney wrote it. It's sort of it's got a twangy sound to it, and it's a story about a guy named Rocky Raccoon whose wife leaves him and runs to a saloon with a guy named Dan, and so he's going to the saloon. It's sort of a Western tale, and he's going to shoot Dan, the guy who took his wife. And the chorus goes, Rocky Raccoon checked into his room only to find Gideon's Bible. So the idea was, what if we took that scenario, a guy checking into a hotel room to kill his wife's lover, meeting Gideon's Bible, but the Bible was personified, essentially.
Okay.
So it's Rocky and Gideon, and we changed the names and we updated it, so it takes place modern day in Chicago, because we didn't want to get sued by the Beatles. If you're listening to this,
Beatles.
I know. If Paul McCartney sues us, though, we're doing something right. So essentially, so the conversation is it's one scene. It's a 50-minute, 45-minute scene of the Bible and Pete discussing the validation of his actions, and ultimately, the validation of the Bible and, in a larger context, the role of strict doctrinal religion, specifically Christianity, in times of really trying, difficult situations. So that was the play that we wrote, and it did pretty well in the Fringe, and we're in post-production for the feature of it right now, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I want to get to that in a little bit. I'm very, very curious about that.
I'm really excited to talk about that too.
So you did this play.
We did the play,
and you acted in it.
Mm-hmm. We wrote it and acted in it.
That's a tough one, I think, because it's really one scene. It's just it's a conversation.
It was hard to do, yeah.
How in that scenario specifically, how do you get the audience active? How do you get them actively listening to what's going on?
What we tried to do was, and we knew that within this story there was a really unique perspective that we were drawing from. If you were someone who grew up in Western Protestant Christianity, then a lot of this stuff would be more familiar. And if you were someone who grew up in that religion and found yourself no longer liking it or sort of burned by it, then perhaps it rang more true. What we tried to do was, honor both of those viewpoints sincerely. We never wanted to feel like the show was preaching to the audience, and we wanted to feel like if you walked into this show thinking, I'm rooting for Gideon or I'm rooting for Pete, which is the character we changed Rocky to Pete because Pete was the rock that Jesus built his church on. So there's a little
behind the scenes,
little behind the scenes action going on for
the scholars.
That's right. Yeah, we did our research beforehand. But if you went in rooting for one or rooting for the other, you never felt like the show was. You feel like you got to have your opinion heard. And so that's what we did. That's how we tried to have an engaging story and have two characters that were, not combative to the idea of discussion. Their ideas were different, and, they certainly got angry, and Pete's certainly a prickly character at times, but the show itself doesn't exclude conversation or, come in with a predisposed idea. And so it was tight to the chest. It's a good question, sort of going back to what we're talking about, including the audience and breaking the fourth wall and reminding them that they're there. I'm not sure that we really did all that much as, a production to do that, other than having a small space,
I think just listening to this, I think what I'm hearing is that you presented an idea that could very easily be controversial, and would and with the intention that someone would take a side.
Right.
It wasn't a type of thing that said, "Oh, we'll see what happens." Like, people walked into that and you immediately presented them to get them active was to say, to know that they would stand on one side or the other.
Wow.
and then to roll with that.
Yeah.
And to say, now you've chosen your side. Now, will you be heard or will you not be heard?
Wow,
and that's
yeah.
our job to decide how you feel about that. So I mean,
Yeah.
that in itself is activating the audience.
Woo.
I think that's incredible. That's almost deeper than looking at the audience and say, "Hey guys, are you involved?" Or like running
Right.
down when you're singing a song and
Right,
in the
right.
audience, I fucking panic every time they do that. I'm like, "Get away from me! Don't touch me! I didn't pay for this."
Yeah, like people singing in the audience. Yeah, dude. Well, that was beautifully said. I think you're totally right. I can't say it better, so I won't. But it did make me think of one thing that may also be in addition to that. We start the show with two monologues, Pete's monologue and Gideon's monologue, and both those monologues are breaking the fourth wall. They're direct contact with the audience. We're making eye contact with them. We're speaking to them, and that's something that. So I was working on a project, a Shakespeare project earlier that year. It was a production of Midsummer Night's Dream with a very dear friend of mine, Ari Stidham, and we sort of created this Shakespeare company called Reverend Shakespeare. It happened in a front yard, and the vibe was, come show up, have something to drink, watch this fun show, and then afterwards come on stage and drink with us, essentially. And that was just sort of the vibe.
It's a con to get drinking buddies.
That's right. It's a con. It's a con. What was that? Oh, it was a con joke earlier. I forgot.
A con.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so we did the show, and then a connection of Ari's. His name's Rob Clark, a brilliant Shakespeare guy, who's directed with the Royal Shakespeare Company. Scholarly person. I think he's working on workshopping a couple of shows right now. I don't really know, but he came in and did a couple rehearsals with us, which was great, and really introduced the idea of direct contact with the audience, direct address. And which is to say that whenever you had a chance, essentially we turned it into this almost, for me, it felt like almost experimental theater, whereas whenever I can look at an audience member and deliver that line to them, I'm going to. And what it did is it turned things like plans, ooh, an idea, I'll do this, into questions. You think I should do that, right? And of course the audience can't say anything because it's a show.
But you immediately get them listening and thinking about what they would say.
And if it goes wrong, well, I should have said something.
Yeah.
That's the idea. And so
I love that.
We tried to take that into our opening monologues for Gun in a Motel Bible, where Pete's character kind of, and they're both a little bit in limbo. Pete's character kind of sort of looks at the audience and tells them his backstory, and they're very thematically structured. It was a very thematically heavy show, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Ideas, words, language, those things, justification, validation. And so he's looking at the audience and he's telling this monologue, and it was a really fun experience for me, because you can't fake that.
Yeah.
We know when someone's asking a rhetorical question or when they're asking for a real question, and if if you dissected it, maybe you could get some clues, but apart from some rule, but you just don't know why. You just do. This person's asking me for real, and we all live in a world where people ask hypothetical questions. People ask questions but don't really care what we say.
Yeah.
And when they do, it matters. And it can be such a rare thing that even just sitting down with an audience and saying, do you think it's my fault? And looking at and asking one person, and then looking at another person, and then bringing up a new idea to a third person. And something that was really fun for me that I sort of, grew into the performance was, because he's talking about how his wife, he's talking about this girl and how he met her and how she, saved him from, his depression at the time. And thematically, he sort of made this person, his new god, and she left him. And so that's two gods that left this dude, the way he sees it.
Yeah.
And he was humiliated. And he was embarrassed. And he didn't know why he had been treated this way. But he felt like it was his fault. And so as I did the monologue more and more and more, and as we moved into production, and when we finally got a full house there, I got to lean into that embarrassment, and I looked around and felt openly ashamed.
Like they knew what you were going through.
And you look around and everyone's looking at you. And when you turn that on, and when you start to experience that humiliation, they see it. Man, humans are geniuses at reading humans. Yeah. That's the first thing that babies do.
We're made to connect.
We are.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. It happens, and we're so good at it. We're so good at it that you can't help but realize that me looking at this guy's making him feel horrible. But it's a show. What am I supposed to do? Look away? Yeah. And if you were in a bar, you would look away. If I was a homeless guy, you wouldn't look at me. But you have to look at me because you paid for a freaking ticket.
Well, that's the experience.
Right. Exactly.
You have to bring that real life experience that that feeling that they would have anywhere else.
Yeah.
But now you put them in a position where they're not going to look away because they did pay for that ticket. They're here to see a live show, and if you can ignite that, I mean, you're on it.
There's this. I'm just sorry. I'm going on about stories now. Hope you don't mind.
That's fine.
There's a show called House Believes. I did the show in college, and it's hyper realistic, a little bit absurd, and I won't go into the plot because it's a bit wacky. But there's this character who is insane. The character's name is Bananas, and a dear friend of mine who lives in Texas right now, an incredible actress who's working all the time. Her name's Kelsey Milbourne. She's doing Our Town right now out there. She played Bananas. And there's this great monologue where she breaks the fourth wall. She looks at the audience and she tells this story about, and it's kind of coming back to me a little bit in pieces. She tells this story about how she was driving through Manhattan and she saw this celebrity, and the celebrity was looking for a ride, and she jumped out of her car and was like, "Hey, jump in my car, I'll give you a ride." And it didn't go well, and the guy the guy freaked out, and she freaked out, and she punched the celebrity, and it's all got crazy. And it's a funny story. It's played for laughs, and the audience is laughing along.
Yeah.
Because it's wacky, it's crazy, and it sort of heightens, and the show's a bit of a dark comedy, so you're used to laughing at this point. And then she, goes on in the story, and that celebrity went on Johnny Carson that night or whatever, and told this story, and everyone was laughing and laughing and laughing. The audience is laughing and laughing and laughing. She's looking around, and she goes, and then I realized that everyone was laughing at me. All of America was laughing at me. And the audience realizes, oh, shit.
They felt something.
I was just laughing at her.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a magic trick, right? Because, you're trying to get the audience to laugh, and then you tell them that they're wrong for it, right? And that's a little dishonest, but that's the effect that you get when you start to be an active participant, and when you start to feel involved, and when you start to realize that you have power to the people in the world around you, and specifically these people on stage. I mean, you go to see theater, or you go to see art, specifically storytelling, because you want to experience, some level of humanity, right? I go to a scary movie because I want to feel afraid without being in danger. Fear is a human emotion, and I want to feel human. I want to see an action movie because I want to feel adrenaline without jumping off a cliff, and that's a real emotion, right?
It's almost like that side of the entertainment is saying, like you said, I want to go because I want to experience a emotion that I do feel, but I want to witness it without it hurting me.
Correct.
Meanwhile, take music, for example. I'm going to that because whatever I'm feeling, I want it to be enhanced so intensely that I can only feel it.
Dude, I think you're so right.
Like
yeah. Whoa, dude, you blew the doors open from that. Because you're right, music does enhance it. It so does. I remember I was watching a production of It's a Wonderful Life, a stage production. And in the movie, there's this swell of music, right? For those of you who haven't seen It's a Wonderful Life. There's a swell of music as George Bailey's character meets everyone from his life and realizes that not only is he valuable to them, but they valued him. And there's a swell of music, and it makes me cry all the time. And I was watching it on stage. It was the same scene, and it was acted really well, and there just wasn't that music. And I remember thinking, why on earth is there not music behind this? Because music's so powerful. It heightens, it guides, and it makes the audience feel comfortable in expressing themselves.
Well, it's the physical vibration.
Wow.
Physical vibration is untouchable. I've said this on multiple episodes. Music is the only thing that is untouchable, in my opinion, because everything else can be tampered with. But physical vibration, our physical body feels it. Our brain processes it after.
Wow.
Our emotions are hit before anything else. But I do want. I like what you were saying there, because you watched the movie and then you saw the live performance, and that was kind of where I wanted to direct and ask you this question, because I mean, I'm obviously don't know about acting. I'm not an actor, but if you're performing the same role, so you're turning your play into a feature film.
Mm-hmm.
You're in post production, which means you already filmed it.
Yeah, we finished.
So the acting itself, you know, you want to grab that audience. With a movie, you can do 100 fucking takes and find the one that really grabs the audience. But so, and I don't know if the acting's different, but is the acting different? Do you have to approach it differently when you're on stage and on camera?
Yeah, 100%.
Because you're still trying to evoke the same emotion, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what part of it is actually different?
Some of it is, it's a great question, and I'm sure other people would have different answers. You know, just to start out with, because of the scheduling, we didn't have undertakes. We were moving at a pretty rapid clip, and it's because Dan and I, we wrote it, we were in it, we know the show so well.
But still, 3 takes compared to 1 on the spot in front of your audience is a very different story.
You're right, you're so right. The difference is that when I'm doing it live, and I'm, 30 minutes into the scene where I'm, getting to a certain point, or, the show's written to build and to, swing back and forth and pendulum between emotions, and it's written to do that. So if you're living in that scene, and we just had one long scene, then 30 minutes in, I've been living this experience for 30 minutes, and if I trust the writing, and I wrote it, so I should. Then I turn the next corner, and whatever emotion or whatever's there is the right emotion. And if it's wildly wrong, then I did the character work wrong, right? Acting is really fun because you sort of do all the work off stage, and again, people will differ, but for me, you do all the work off stage, and then you walk on stage and forget it all. You forget it all, and you have to forget it all. You have to turn the corner and not know what's going to be there. And if you've done the right work, and if your given circumstances are right, and if your objectives and tactics are clear, and if you've built up the reality of your backstory and the real world clear enough in your head, then you turn that corner, and it's going to be the right emotion. And whether that's a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right of what you had last night, who cares? It's what's honest. And with the movie, we were going out of order. And it's one scene, so we didn't have like, oh, well, this is the next day, or oh, I can reset a little bit.
Yeah.
We, on day 1, when we were filming something 20 minutes in my head, I had to know what I was going to do day 2 when I was filming, 5 minutes in, without having the luxury of the run-up of being sincere there. And so I've had...
It's a totally different method.
Yeah. So a part of that was... just because I knew the show so well and we ran the show so thoroughly, we're both actors who don't mess around.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's artists who go up there, and part of the expression is feeling it, but part of the art's just actually doing it, and like putting the work in. And I think there's a lot of people who, well, whatever, this isn't about disparaging others, but
well, so I'm going to make a comparison here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I really like what you said. And I'm a very, I'm very strict, I'm a very intense person when it comes to, if you want to step on stage, and I'm talking about music right now, if you want to step on stage and share what you have.
Yeah.
Not even music, just any sort of performance. Music is my thing. I always say, when you're sitting down to write something,
right, be
vulnerable, be sensitive, go to the darkest fucking places, go to the best place, go as deep as you possibly can, and let that out. Don't be ashamed.
Right.
But when you step on fucking stage, and if you start acting like it's your time to be sensitive and vulnerable at that level, what you're saying is you're so worthy and you're so great that everyone deserves to see that.
I agree.
And call it cruel if you want. A lot of people say that's cruel, but I am sick and tired of seeing, especially musicians, step on stage and have this like almost fake vulnerability, fake sensitivity, like what they have to say is so meaningful. It's like, no. If it's so meaningful, then you would have done your job as a professional to put that in the song and make it impactful.
Right.
When you step on stage, it means you've practiced, you put yourself in the state of mind, and you're ready to fucking go. You're ready to deal with mishaps. You're ready to bomb. You're ready to succeed. You're ready to deal with audience members. You're ready to fuck. I mean, all that stuff goes into play, and you have practiced so well that you forget everything that you were training, and it just happens.
Yeah.
So you as your person can be in that moment.
Art's not therapy. Art is not therapy.
No, and I feel that's so similar to what you were saying. Like, you have to do all the necessary things, so when you do step in front of the camera or you do step on stage, you're not thinking about what that person, that you're acting as that person. You are that character.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same thing as stepping on stage to play a show.
I was going to ask you about that. And I say art's not therapy. It doesn't mean you can't use art as therapy.
It's a release for sure, but it's not going to give you an answer to what you're feeling.
And if you're going through something, and so I play some instruments, and I play guitar, and I really enjoyed it, and I still play a little bit, but I use it primarily as just something to strum and sing. And most of the time I don't write things. I just sort of sing what I'm feeling. Yeah. And it's really healthy for me. I really, really like it. And if it ever turns, if they turn into songs, then great. And if I show my friends my songs, then great. But for the most part, that is a therapeutic thing for me. I find great value in it. So it's not that you can't use art as therapy, but if you want to be a professional artist or you want to make money off your art,
there's a threshold.
If you're relying on your own therapy to do art, then you're setting yourself up for a real dangerous experience. Because then you're saying, I need to be injured in order to make good art. And we see, there's a lot of people that have really unhealthy relationships with their own work. And I think it's because like you say, go to that spot, write that thing. Someone's feeling that out there, and
it's
your
job to go that deep. It's your job to go to the place where no one else will. It's your job to look fear, shame, and every negative emotion in the face and say, "I'm ready for you." Right. It's your job to come out of that with every joyful emotion, or however you come out of it. Right. It's your job to face all those things that the average person not only can't, but maybe just won't. Right. And do that. That's your job. Yeah. But when you step on the stage and you say, "I'm here to entertain," that is rule number one. Yeah. You entertain. Like I said, you're listening to that song as much as the audience. You're watching that play. You're watching that character as much as the audience is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I watch a lot of acting, and then going back to improv, I watch a lot of improv that feels self-indulgent. Watch it if you like. I'm here just to do my art. Yeah. And it drives me insane. I totally agree with you. I think that it's a dangerous place to be as an artist, and I think it is an unhealthy. Every time you do art, you teach the audience a little bit, and sometimes that is teaching the audience how and when to laugh. If you're doing a comedy, teaching the audience who these characters are, teaching the audience who you are as a performer, right? Yeah. And, your first two songs are telling the audience, "Hey, this is the kind of guy I am."
I have never started a show with talking. I've walked up. People just look at this like, "Oh, great, another dude with a fucking guitar." I don't even look the part, Sure. And I start with something very heavy, very intense, very you would never expect out of an acoustic guitar. Right. And that's the point. And it usually is a heavier concept, deeper concept. People will feel a little shaken, little thrown off, like, what did this guy just do? Right. And then I come in with a very charismatic personality, say, "Hey, I'm human."
Right, exactly.
This is what we're doing.
And that's not because you need to be in a dark spot at the beginning and then recover from it. It's because you're teaching the audience that's who you are as an artist.
Yeah, this is what I'm doing, but I'm still a person next to you.
This is the work I've done. Yeah, exactly.
It's beautifully said.
Yeah, and
the work I've done. Exposing the work that you've done.
That's correct. And so you get to, as an artist, you're in communication with the audience. You want to do your best work, but you get to teach an audience how to listen to you. As an actor, you get to teach the world how to cast you. You get to teach, and when you're performing the show, you get to teach the world. You get to teach the audience the world of the show. We're teachers, we're communicators, we're interpreters, to a certain degree. And if you're teaching an audience that you are a victim and that you are emotional and that they should pity you and that art is only valuable if it is torturous, then you're responsible for teaching someone that,
And that's not saying that, a lot of great songs have come from that torture. Sit in that misery, express that. But once it's in the song, people, a lot of artists, songs specifically, have to understand that once that song is written, it has become its own being. Yeah. That is a physical vibration. That is a physical sound wave going through the fucking universe, going through the world, that is going through people. It's not yours anymore. Right. You've expressed it because you felt it. You channeled whatever it was, but now it's traveling. Yeah. That's why you have to be so good at what you do. You have to respect what you do and be professional, so that when you do channel it through, it's not just for you.
There's this great book called Creativity Inc., and it's about Pixar, essentially. Okay. And their system and how they came about and their growth and who worked there, etc. And I haven't read it, but I've read excerpts of it. And I have a dear friend who's read all of it and quotes it all the time. So this is for him. And one of the things he says, that the book says, look at me. But he says, our movies are never done; they're just taken away from us, and not in like a negative way, not like in a.
Of course not.
But you look at Pixar, and like you can't look at a storytelling studio, because that's the storytellers. You can't look at a studio that is more consistent with good stories, And maybe you don't like animation, maybe it's not your style, whatever. But if you don't like what they're saying, you can't deny that they tell the stories well, And in a world where so much entertainment has become bloated and scared and overreactionary, Pixar has been so consistent from Toy Story through WALL-E and Up and I Love Brave. It's consistent, Inside Out, and if those guys are like, no, it's never done, it just becomes time to let it go. And then it's no longer ours. It's the audience. It belongs to the people who watch it. It belongs to these characters. Exactly.
It's no different than having an emotional connection with someone. You're connecting.
Yeah. And
they say like, what separates a creative from a non-creative? First off, everyone's creative in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
There's creativity. The people. I was once asked, what do you think the purpose of human life is? I think the purpose of human life is to create and innovate because it's inevitable. We cannot help it. Whether it's on the smallest level or the biggest level, create or innovate, one of the two or both. But on the almost the side, the art side of things, which is almost kind of hard to understand, we can't quite scientifically explain it. It's the fact that what separates is that we have that channel open. Henry Matisse talks about it. His whole theory on the creative process is the idea that ideas are constantly going through and you have to have an outlet, because if you're not channeling it, you build up. And then artists are so fucking miserable because they haven't trained themselves in their art and their craft enough to be able to channel out every idea, be able to sketch out all that, be able to sit there and play all the songs and all the shit, all the good, all the stuff. If you don't know how to do what you're doing, then and that channel is open, it builds up and you become fucking miserable. Become a miserable artist because you're not channeling it through. So I mean that's the goal. That's what you have to accept, is you're not exactly this genius. You're just channeling something at a higher level. You're not better than anyone else, but you're channeling it so you and everyone else can hear it, watch it, experience it, whatever it is.
That's a cool thought. Who was that? Who said that?
Henry Matisse talks about it. It's the creative process.
Okay.
I'm not going to quote it just because, it's been a long time since I've...
Copyright,
Yeah, that's definitely why I'm not quoting it. Not that I don't want to sound like an asshole or anything like that.
How many times do you practice, or how long do you practice guitar a day, do you think? Or is it even practicing anymore?
I mean, I still run my scales. I still have a fucking metronome. I still run my scales. The simplest ones, the most complex ones, whatever I'm in the mood for, I still do it.
Really? So there's more complex scale, like minor scales and.
So like the pentatonic scale is like the most basic scale you can get.
Ba 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 ba.
Yeah, basically major and pentatonic, minor pentatonic. There's like natural minors. There's the modes. There's all. It just keeps going. You just literally take the 7 intervals and then you change one note and you have a completely different scale all up and down the guitar.
Okay.
So you have 7 intervals.
Yeah, 7 intervals, and you change one of those intervals.
Yeah, so like you take the 6 and you move it up. You have a new scale.
Got it.
But all the other ones are the same because as it goes up, there you can play the same scale different patterns all the way up the guitar and down the guitar.
Right.
So that changes the different. They call those modes, and then there's arpeggios, which basically breaks down the 1, 3, 5, and then you add so you play the 1, 3, 5 all the way up and down the scale, different positions.
Cool.
And then you add the 7s, the major 7s, the minor 7s, which major 7 arpeggio, something I fuck around. Like anybody that's like a huge music buff that really knows their stuff, not that I do all that much, but if you ever listen to my songs or watch me play, the major 7 chords, arpeggios, that's like my go-to.
The major 7 arpeggios.
Arpeggios, yeah.
Arpeggios.
So I mean, I always do that stuff, and it's sometimes it's like what I want to play today. I got my drummer coming over. We're gonna play some heavy metal, fast stuff. Let me warm up. I'll run with the metronome. Or I got a show coming up. I need to get my chops up. Let me do this to prepare, and then I'll practice my set.
Wow.
I mean, and outside that, just fucking around. I mean, just jamming with yourself. But I've also been doing it for 20 years, so.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
You're talking about how you started when you were 5, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Started when I was 5, and there was a handful of times when I was 5 years old, I sat there and I practiced because I didn't have the calluses yet, and I had tiny little hands till my fingers bled. And like I kind of just knew, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's that famous, I don't know if it's famous or not, but that like ballerina quote. It's like, you're not a ballerina until your toes bleed.
Yeah.
You're not a guitarist till your fingers bleed, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it doesn't know how calluses grow. But
that's crazy, man.
Yeah, we got deep there. That was fun.
Yeah, well, welcome back to the surface, everyone.
Yeah, welcome back to the outline podcast here. But I do want to dive into something totally different right now.
Let's jump. Let's change gears.
I want to talk about you and your dad.
Yeah.
Your dad is, at least correct me if I'm wrong, is it Raja?
Raja
Gosnell. He's a very famous director. He's done a lot of big Hollywood feature films.
Yeah.
Really, really awesome stuff. Never Been Kissed is one of them. I saw that and I was like, oh, I grew up with that movie.
Yeah, Never Been Kissed.
What a great movie.
That's a good one. I like it a lot.
So he's top level.
Yeah.
And in the email you sent me, you said that he's directing the feature for your play. Mm-hmm. So I want to, I mean, I can only imagine that it's going to turn out great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's great. It's really great.
So that's your father. You have a very personal relationship, obviously. You're his son.
Yeah.
You chose acting as your lifestyle, as your career, whatever it may be. And this guy is the professional, the top level of what it is.
Yeah.
So do you ever feel, especially through the process, has he been a crutch or a tool?
That's a phenomenal question. First and foremost, a tool. I mean, it's impossible to overstate. How lucky, not just because. Let me just reset. It's a tool because, with the success that my father has had and with the hard work that he's put into it, I have received not only a clear guide of, okay, this is what hard work looks like, but also the financial security to try things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who, don't get the opportunity to go to, a school that I went to, or get the exercise that I got, or here's an extra whatever dollars for me to do, a kids youth camp, and I've just never gone hungry, which is,
which some would say is a detrimental thing for an artist.
That's an interesting point. I think that there's this. We're all looking for something to ground us to humanity and also to humble us and to keep us hungry. And it's easy to look at, some of my, heroes and go, wow, there was a moment when they were hungry. And not just physically hungry, but or that physical hunger led to an artistic hunger.
They wanted it more than anything.
Exactly, because they had no choice. So there is this, because I have a choice, the fire there's not this I gotta make it or bust. It's I gotta make it because I gotta make it. In terms of an asset, and this is true for my father and my mother. My mom is also a storyteller, and that's truthfully how I think of myself, especially now. I act, I direct, I write, I go to readings and give notes on scripts, and most of my days are just spent, talking about what makes good storytelling and why, and how. And both my parents are storytellers and communicators, and so something that's unique about, my parents and that's unique about my dad in terms of, where he's at and his level of success, is that he's just always a great person to people. And it sounds so basic, but
it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
Not at all. And this is what I learned from him. When he's working on, a major Hollywood studio film, where his ass is on the line and everyone's ass is on the line. There's money going into this, and when movies flop, they lose millions of dollars. And so that's what people go to bed with, and that it just does something different to you when. When that's what's on the line. And when that happens and that's the world you're in, someone comes up to you and asks you about, the makeup choice or the costume choice, or, a choice on anything, you got to realize that to this person, this is the most important thing to them. And maybe it's not the most important thing to you right now because you're dealing with 16, 17 of, you're driving the whole freaking ship, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. When this person comes up to you and says, hey, what about this? You got to be able to, zero that attention down and recognize that to this person, it is the most important thing. And when you start to value that and you start to understand that, and when it takes energy to change gears. It's the transition fluid, And I think there's a lot of artists who are very successful, and you know, I don't know about them, but you know, it's easy to, well, this is my thing, you should deal with your thing, and there's all sorts of stories of crazy, powerful people in Hollywood, you know, all the gross stuff withstanding, who are just assholes, you know, and it takes work, and it's a skill to look someone in the eye and say, yeah, you're the most important thing right now.
It's almost like the architect that designed a massive, stadium, but, will go down and pay attention to one tiny piece of metal on a chair.
Yeah.
That might be off.
Because that chair and that piece of metal is connected to some guy or some girl who's in charge of making that work.
And without them, none of this would be possible.
Exactly. And maybe that's an intern. Maybe that's the art department. Maybe that's something you're like, dude, I don't care what color the curtains are right now. I got to get this shot going or whatever, Yeah. And I'm not quoting him. But you have to, you have to run a good set. And I grew up on his sets. And everyone I ever talked to, people would pull me aside as a kid and tell me about my dad. And say, this is who your dad is, and this is why he's different. And there was all sorts of things that they'd say about him. From his sense of style to his, not his clothes necessarily, but in terms of his storytelling. But the thing that everyone said was just how well he ran his set. He treated everyone like they mattered. He treated them like family. And that's just the biggest takeaway, because no matter what you're doing in art and outside of art, when the stakes get high, you have to, and when you have more powerful, you have to lean that direction. Because you'll suffocate otherwise. So yeah, and then it's from a more tangible way in terms of the advantages. We spent Thanksgiving playing charades. We didn't really watch football that much, and so charades is just trying to communicate to people without words, and we played gibberish games, and that's just communicating with people without English but sounds, and so that was just kind of the culture I grew up in. It was just about telling good stories and
so he was your ultimate tool, one of the ultimate tools. I mean,
yeah, I can't. I mean, it's.
At no point did you feel like he was a crutch that you were leaning back on, because I asked that question earlier about not the question, but I pointed out that hunger thing was a little bit manipulative on my part, and the reason being,
ooh, you son of a gun.
Well, I was curious. I wanted to get a real answer out of you, because people say you got to be hungry.
Yeah.
And I want everyone listening to understand that hunger comes from within.
I agree.
You either want something or you don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're rich, poor, come from something good, come from something bad, been through something, whatever you identify as. What doesn't matter. Your hunger comes from yourself. If you want something, you shouldn't let what anyone else says, or you shouldn't let whatever it is that you have to hold you back. If you have something that can get you moving forward faster, do it without even fucking thinking. There should be no shame in taking advantage of what is handed to you and what is good for you. It is your job to decide if it's good for you or not, and then move forward with it. Because if you believe in something as big as art, as big as creativity, as big as connecting with other human beings, as big as changing the world, then it's your job to move forward without shame and make those decisions.
I'll tell you, the biggest crutch that it's been has been my own sense of guilt about it.
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
exactly
fucking
what you're
let
saying.
that go.
And to the degree in which you're preaching about it, I can't agree more. And it was amazing how, looking back on it, maybe even still, that can be a really hard thing to do. To go, to realize, man, I have something that most people wish they could have, and I don't know how to square that away.
Let me put it this way: the people that want you to feel bad for what you have because they don't have it are the people that are not going to put the work in to care about what they have.
And this is what I'm saying, is that, like, even without those people, I was doing it myself.
Exactly.
I was, and whether I was, having, and I don't even know, I was having, like, conversations with future people who were going like, yo, you never deserved it. Or I was just, I had to square away my own, like, masculine pride or whatever. I'm not even know. But I remember at an early age, maybe like third grade, rehearsing ways to tell people what my dad did that wasn't lying, but it also wasn't fully truthful, Looking back on it, I don't know that I could define what that was, but at a very early age, maybe it's because I knew I wanted to be an actor.
You felt like you had to dumb down what you had so people didn't look at you differently.
Maybe that may be it.
So you felt better about yourself, and you feel like you weren't, saying that I'm great because I have opportunity.
Yeah, I wanted. Yeah, and I wanted people to look at me not for where I was coming from, but for what I've done. And it probably took me just as long to have that realization as it took anyone else. And that's, and I want to echo everything that you're saying, and heighten it to say that for me it was, as much as it was an external battle, and there have been people who have been who've been vocal about it, but it was well in a way an internal thing where I had to I had to derive my self-esteem from my own work, and I had to derive my self-esteem from my own I have a
you had to care about what you were doing.
Yeah, I had to get a sharp, heightened sense of the world, and pursue that, understand that, and work hard. And that's where I'm going to get my worth from in this industry. And period, end of sentence. And there was something in my head that no matter how hard I worked, I would not ever earn that to myself because of all the advantages I've had. And it's for if there's anyone out there who feels like and it doesn't have to be in the artistic business. I know this is an artistic podcast. You're an artistic guy. We've talked about art a lot, and art's a weird world because, you don't inherit, or I don't know, like art's strange that way. It's not, your dad's, car sales dealership or, or whatever, a lawyer or something, or, the owner of the frickin' Knicks. It's a different thing. It's a different experience. And at a certain point, people cast you, people work with you, not because your dad could get them a gig, but because, you're good at what you do, and that was something that I had to, and still, have to, monitor myself on, to be honest with you. Yeah. It's as much as the world or whatever the world, as much as there's this, there's a perspective that is, you're getting a lot of advantages because of who your dad is and what's going on there. And as valid as that is, that can't touch, what gets me up in the morning and what keeps me up late. This whole week has been me writing till 2:30 in the morning and waking up at 8:30 to go to my job.
Yeah.
And that's not because of my dad. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. You have to live your own life, make your own choices.
100%.
So I fucking love all that. I think especially for a lot of the young artists out there, just young people pursuing what they want,
mm-hmm.
I think that's really important. Really important to understand that any shame that you do have, even if, like you said, it's external and people are being vocal about it,
mm-hmm.
it's all internal.
Mm-hmm.
It's you letting them in. It's you listening to yourself. It's
right.
you having those thoughts. It's letting go of that shame and saying, I believe in this, and going for it. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to give you a solid answer of why you're alive and what you have to do and what you... They don't know. They're only saying that because they believe something someone once told them.
Right.
And that's how it's always been. Feel
mm-hmm.
free to fucking change that. That's your job. But without getting back into that, I want to...
That's a good question, though. So your father's an artist, right?
Yes, he's a painter.
He's a painter. So that's not music, but I'm curious. So
that guy's just very... he's a world famous painter. He's done, as big as it can get with art. From being commissioned by the Pope to being honored by the President of Guatemala, like all the big stuff.
Right.
And he's a very profound and revolutionary artist and whatnot.
What have you learned from him?
I've learned a lot about...
music and painting aren't as close as directing and acting.
No, but I've learned a lot about the darker sides of things.
Really?
Discussing things. He's incredibly intelligent. He's got one of those brains that's just like, what's going on? Like, how does that? Like, it's not even just art. The guy, like, you give him anything on this planet, he'll figure it out in a night.
Wow.
literally you name it and he can talk about it. And because he cares. He's a very deep person, very intense person. I think he, without saying anything bad, I think he sums up a lot of the preconceived ideas we have about the crazy artist. Due to his intensity. He's intense beyond belief. But I've learned a lot about the dark places. I've learned what it can do to you, where it can take you, how important it is, how to come out of it, how to look at it logically, practically, accept yourself, to accept who you are, just for the sake. He always tells me, he's like, the day you accept who you actually are, you'll actually start living. He's like, if you want to try to be like everyone else and try to be like someone else, you can spend the rest of your life miserable, but you'll always be missing something. Right. He's like, for whatever reason, you're opened up as an artist. You're opened up to something bigger. Not that it's better by any means, but you're opened up to something different that you're not going to get from going and working at a day job. Right. You're not going to get that from going and sitting down and listening to the same shit that other people are listening to. That's what satisfies them, but it's never going to satisfy you. You can't sit in a group and be satisfied with a conversation that everyone else is having, because that's just who you are. Right. He's like, it's going to be a little tougher finding what you want and finding who you are and where you belong. But once you find it, it'll be no different than everyone else. You just have a different job. And until you accept that and accept that you're not going to go down the same, graduate high school, go to college for 4 years, do this, and blah, 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 get a job. He's like, you're never going to have that life. Yeah. Give up on it. Accept who you are and go for that. And I mean, that was a lot of the learning process with him. It was about the kind of the deeper inside of the internal battle, the internal monologue of an artist. And watching the balance of having a normal life in the sense of having a family, having kids, 100%. Struggling with that and 100%. Whatnot. I mean, my experience was very, very different than actually, people staying, parents definitely not together kind of thing. It was not an easy dynamic watching. Wow. My mother's an incredibly powerful person, incredibly creative, incredibly genius. They both came from nothing. My mom was homeless on the streets at 13 of Chicago. Wow. My dad was tortured in Soviet Russia, escaped to America, and lived on the streets of LA for 2 years. Wow. My mom came from nothing. He came from nothing. My mom discovered him. She found his art behind someone's couch that he was crashing on, and they built an empire. That's the kind of what I grew up with. I got to grow up with that. I think a lot of the practical sides of life I struggle with more than like the crazy grandiose ideas. Right. So that, I mean, my education came on not losing myself in it. Yeah. I'd say.
That's crazy. Yeah. I got a shout out to my mom too. My dad was something that comes with and I'm sure this is true for you, honored by the president, working for the Pope. My dad's career meant that he would be busy for a year and a half at a time. You know? And sometimes that would be in different countries. And, I look at what I want to do, and it's like, all right, well, best case scenario, I'm being paid to work for a long time in a different country, Not necessarily a different country, but, I'm best case scenario, I'm living that kind of life. And, my mom created an environment where there was never this sense of, whoa, where's dad? Or, oh no, like this isn't like she created a place where he was able to come in and out of our lives seamlessly and in a way that wasn't emotionally trying for us. And I remember my dad was working on the first Scooby-Doo movie. He directed it, and I was down in Australia, and I was like, okay, well, what's the situation going to be? Dad's going to be in Australia for a long time. That's going to be hard for the kids. My mom just like, all right, I'm going to get certified in homeschool. And she taught all four of us. I have three sisters. And she just became like certified and homeschooled and taught all three of us.
It's a unit. Works as a unit.
Exactly. And she was just this, this incredible, incredible woman.
Shout out to moms then.
Yeah, shout out to moms. Hey, moms out there. You've been shouted out too.
So let's tackle a few more things. Yeah. Before we start talking about our moms, because we know, we're sons. We're sons. We could talk about them for fucking 6 more hours.
Gosh, love you, Mom.
Yeah. So with your dad, one last question about your dad. Mm-hmm. I'm really curious, when you're working together, are there lines you can't cross? Like, what jeopardizes your relationship? What keeps you guys from fighting personally? What keeps you guys from disagreeing? I mean, there's got to be a thick fucking line. Like, how do you deal with things that you really disagree on in a professional area without letting the personal relationship fall into it?
The same thing, the same way that I deal with any other professional, honestly. That's hard to say because, you know, he ends up, you know, he's my dad, you know, it's different. But in the same way that when I work on something, when I give notes on something, I'm serving the story. You know, if I'm an actor, I serve the story by portraying it. If I'm a writer, I serve the story by being, you know, diligent and, you know, good at writing. You know, it's not erratic. I have a mission. I'm setting people up for success. I'm directing something. I'm interpreting and leading. I'm guiding. I'm letting the crew power the ship, and I'm driving it. And everything I do is in service to the story. And so, you know, this last experience working with my dad was incredible. It really was. And
you were able to maintain the professional relationship.
100%. And part of it was because my dad's not an ego dude, and I'm not an ego dude. You know, he grew up He grew up in the Valley surfing. Yeah. And like interned for an editor back when they were cutting and, you know, pasting film. Yeah. And he was so essentially the when film was an actual tangible thing, they'd use some audio from some clips and some visuals from other takes, and so if you had the audio from this take and the visuals from this take, then you'd take scissors and cut them and paste them and move them around. And it was his job to go in the barrel at the end of the day and take all the stuff that wasn't used and somehow put it back together again. So he just got really, really good at doing all this work for no reason.
Literally bottom of the barrel.
Exactly. Just in case someone needed it eventually, and just putting it away somewhere. I mean, he would, you know, fly. He'd just like jump on a plane and hold, you know, film on his lap, just to drop it off somewhere else. And he just worked and worked and worked and stayed late and stayed late.
You might have to get your dad on the damn podcast.
Dude, yeah, he's great.
I would love to have him on. He fucking probably has just so much gold.
I mean, he'd talk about surfing for half the time.
I'm cool. I'm okay with
that. So, you know, neither of us are ego dudes, you know. It's we just both work hard and we want to do the best we can. And so,
well, let's I mean, I want to just real quick about the ego thing.
Sure.
I want, you know, just the fact that you guys are father and son. Yeah. And there's a lot of things that could jeopardize it. Mm-hmm. But what I'm hearing is that the fact that you leave ego out of it, it makes no difference whether you're father or son or not. Well, ego is the killer. Mm-hmm. And that's great. I fucking love this.
To me, it's less about I gotta remove my ego, because that's anytime you're going into a situation trying to, you know,
remove your ego, it's already there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, spending time trying to remove something that's there is going to be hard, and maybe shouldn't even be done because it's there for a reason necessarily. It's just you gotta have something else that's more important, you know. Yeah. And for us, you know, he of course saw the show, and our show won some awards in the Fringe, and you know, there was a producer, micro budget producer that came and really liked it, and a cinematographer that came and really liked it, Chelsea Gonering, shout out, and so, you know, there were people who were interested in making it, and he jumped in. And then, you know, step one was just him talking to me and Dan and our stage director, Alicia, who was instrumental in the filming as well. And, you know, it was like, okay, what's this thing? What's this story? Why is it important? And it wasn't, you know, why am I important, or why is Dan important, or why is Raj important? It was like, okay, well, let's all humble ourselves before the art. And if that's the main focus, then okay, you disagree with me, let's talk about it. Okay, you know, we'll jump on conference calls and disagree about things all the time. Yeah. All the time. And we'll get in gridlocks, you know, where we're emailing back and forth and calling this person and making sure this is happening. And you know, it's not that it's not delicate. It's not that there's no friction. It's not that, you know,
it's art. It's inevitable.
Of course.
But dealing with it.
But you know, I'm not there to serve me, and neither is he. And that's
there's something bigger at play.
Exactly. And it's not about taking away the ego. It's about supplanting something that's much, much more important, and that can be a hard.
Dude, you got to say that again. It's not about taking away the ego. It's about
supplanting something that's much more important.
That is fucking. Oh my god, I love that. Thanks. Like I need to hear that. Everyone needs to hear that. Yeah. It's not about your ego. Is who you. You're not going to get rid of that. You want to take rid of that? Go spend some time meditating. Do whatever the practices you want.
Sure. Shave your head.
yeah, don't worry about that. It's about finding something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
If you can find something bigger than yourself and believe in it, then that's what you need to chase.
And that's that's what we're going back to, and it's all connected. Talking about being a performer on stage.
Yeah.
You're not there to express your own opinions. You're there to entertain these people.
Yeah. How many careers have fallen because of that one fucking thing?
Yeah, because it's all about their ego.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's tough. It's hard.
Well, before we go, I have one more.
Is that it?
I have one more question for you. That's not it. I have one more question.
We got to
come
back, man. This is too fun,
dude. You're coming back on.
Oh,
you're definitely coming back on.
I can't wait.
You're very well versed in so many different things, especially in the creative world. I think you have so much more valuable things to bring.
Oh man.
For the sake of the episode,
Well, I haven't even got to tell the audience about your amazing studio yet. There's a Led Zeppelin. There's a Led Zeppelin.
That's a new edition.
Here. New edition Led Zeppelin. We got Jimmy Page.
We got Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix all over the place.
There's a Kid Cudi, which is we're talking
that
about,
album. Real quick, that album, Man on the Moon, Kid Cudi, is one of the most important albums in music history. That changed music and that changed a generation.
It changed my life. I'll tell you that.
Everyone's at our age, our generation. That album set a tone that hasn't been matched. There's albums all through history that really set a fucking tone.
Yeah.
The Black Album, Metallica's every album. I'm a diehard Metallica fan.
Was wearing a Metallica shirt right now.
Yeah, wearing a Metallica shirt. But Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails, The Fragile. I mean, albums like that fucking change everything. That set a tone. Led Zeppelin 4, Kid Cudi's Man on the Moon, even Kanye West. The guys continue to do it every time, whether you don't like his music or not.
No,
the guy has set a fucking tone.
Straight up.
So I don't want to like fan out real quick, but that album is really one of those.
No, fan out, bro. It's Studio Corner for y'all Studio Corner heads.
So before we go, one more question, because this is just I wrote this one down because I knew I wanted to ask this. This is my curiosity.
Yeah.
As just I want to know, how do you know a part or a character is for you? Like, because you can go on audition, you can get on audition and say, oh, that's an opportunity, but at what point do you say, I need to decide if this is right for me? Like, how do you know? Is it based on your own personality, how you connect with it? What are the red flags? Like, I've always been so curious about that, because with a gig, like, hey, we want you to play the House of Blues. Fuck yeah, I'm gonna play the House of Blues. I'm gonna bring my material and we're gonna fucking do it, you know?
Yeah.
But like with acting, you're asked to do something, be someone you're not.
Yeah.
So that's a huge fucking requirement. How do you know? It's
hard. Every actor's first answer will be, I can do anything. Which is why actors should never pick. If you're an actor, don't pick your headshots, because you'll pick the prettiest picture and you'll think you're right for everything, and it's fine that you're not. You don't have to be.
You shouldn't be.
You should. Yeah, exactly. You should be you.
Have an identity, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, the truth is that. Man, I don't know. I don't know that I have a barometer for that.
Well, how about an experience that you had that you said, "Wow, this is the part for me. This is my part."
That's a great question.
Got you thinking today.
I know. The parts that I enjoy the most are the parts that. Well, see, I as an actor, I think this is true for most people. Most people find certain things easier, and this is probably true in all sorts of profession. I want to do law. I find standing up in front of a jury easier. I find doing tax law easier, whatever. And we tend to enjoy these things that we're good at, and we tend to go towards them. I think the same thing's true with acting. I don't tend to play angry characters well. I've done anger before. I have played anger, but those roles, I've done a couple of roles that are angry, aggressive, and not like bitter or betrayed or hurt, and then therefore I'm angry, but like cruel people
without reason almost.
And well, that's the thing. You got to find a reason. They call it acting for a reason. It's because you have to act. You have to be you can't be active. Acting is not. Expressing or experiencing an emotion. That's part of it, but it's pursuing something. If I'm angry, it's because I'm trying to accomplish something, even if the character is just overreacting and doesn't realize acting in a blind range. I, as the actor, have to know this character wants to provide something, is being robbed that opportunity, and so therefore blaming people who I want to provide for you, and you're not letting me, so I'm, upset at you or whatever. And as an actor,
Jesus, that's insightful as fuck.
Well, you have to. You have to. If and the audience may just see, you know, a redneck alcoholic or whatever, but if that's the character to you, then you're lost. You know, if you got to know that within this character, you know, the thing, every human wants to think that tomorrow matters. They have to. And when you take that or things like that away from them, they act poorly. And it's not necessarily the world's fault. Sometimes it's their fault. But every character wants that. And all that to say is it's been hard for me to play characters that are cruel.
So I think what I'm getting is you have to find a role that you, outside of an actor, but as a person, see worth pursuing. You have to find someone that you would pursue, that you want to know, almost like you're going to play this character, and like when you choose that character, I'm playing him because I want to know more about what this character is.
I think I don't want to play a character that's written poorly. I guess that's
definitely that for sure.
Yeah, sure, and that
a dynamic character would be nice.
Yeah, and that may be the line. You know, there are times when I've auditioned for things, and the writing and the directing and the audition process has been, no, just play a mean person.
The fuck does that mean?
And it's like, well, I mean, people get mean.
Yeah.
And you know, it's my job as an actor to interpret that. But if the writing feels two-dimensional, then I'll one of my favorite roles that I've ever played was a guy who was misogynistic, insane, paranoid, cruel, abusive to his friends, and it was one of my favorite productions I've ever done. It was a play written by a man named Dr. T.J. Walsh. It was about August Strindberg. It's called Born on a Sunday. And August Strindberg is a playwright. He wrote a lot of what's considered early Scandinavian realism, along with Ibsen, where theater was moving from a more performative, high-class sort of thing, and becoming more and more slice of life. Not that far yet, but what we consider realism, what we consider most of storytelling today. And he wrote a play called Miss Julie, which is a staple in theater history. You should read it if you're interested. And then 5 years went by, and he wrote a play called The Dream Play, which is bat crazy. You know, it's all over the place, and you read it once and you don't get it, and it's odd and it's strange, and I'm sure there's people out there that could explain it to me. But you wonder what happened in those 5 years to go from a well-structured, you know, interesting play to, you know, this crazy thing. And he went to France. He got into alchemy. He did shock therapy, hypnotherapy. Dude just went crazy, and he was trying to fix something in himself, right? And so this play was about those 5 years, and it was probably the cruelest character outwardly that I think I played, and that I had to internalize. A very dark, cynical, hateful, angry person. And one of the reasons I liked it so much is because I got to get in there and not justify what he did, but try to understand it. And
Great approach.
Thankfully, the play was, you know, helped me out a lot. Then the guy who wrote it was directing it, and you know, we had talks where I was like, hey man, I don't get this yet. I was in rehearsal. This is probably the most unprofessional I've ever been, where we were trying to work on some stuff. And I was saying, listen, I gotta go home and work on this. I'm not ready. And he was like, all right, let's jump to a new scene. And I thank him from the bottom of my heart, because, you know, there's some stuff that I just wasn't ready to do until I went home and did the work on. And I didn't realize, I thought I was ready, you know.
Yeah.
And I realized I wasn't. It was a great learning experience, and a cruel character, and someone who was not justified, but someone who was hopefully empathetic, at least to me.
Yeah.
And so that was valuable.
So I guess it's almost like, you know, choosing a character, you have to be able to find what you want out of the character too. I mean, it's almost like you're connecting with, you have to be able to connect with the role so much that, you know, you become it.
It's true.
You're able to you know, step into someone's shoes that left off somewhere and pick up where they left off and feel everything they're feeling.
That's right.
And tell their story for them. I mean,
and another, you know, another thing for if there's any actors listening who are worried about playing the right role, the right whatever, if someone casts you in something, they cast you to play you.
Oh my God! Yes.
I'm sure this is true with music.
Well, studio musicians. I said this on my last podcast.
Yeah.
If someone hires you to fucking play a part, they're hiring you. to fucking do it.
Yeah.
Don't try to be someone else. Be you for that part.
Exactly. If I'm hiring, if someone hires me, if someone for some reason hires me to play Annie, Orphan Annie. That's a horrible.
Annie.
That's a horrible. I'm cut this part.
I'm not cutting shit.
If someone hires you to play something, it's because they want you to bring your humanity to it. It should not be another person's version of it. It should not be. There is no rote character. We're storytellers. We're meant to tell stories. The memorization, the blocking, the projection, the diction, the rhetorical devices, the syntax, all those things are serving you being a storyteller and you telling a story. And if you aren't able to connect those skills to your desire to tell people what is happening the way that you would, then you're going to be drowning and drowning and drowning forever.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fucking advice right there.
That's right,
I
baby.
fucking love that.
All right.
Well, before we go, do you have any last words?
I also love the word crispy.
Oh, dude, crispy.
A great word.
Crispy is the best word ever.
Great word. Love it. Crispy. That's it.
Well, dude,
That's
thank
it for
you.
me, man.
Fucking thank you. This was really incredible. I love bringing the different sides of creativity, entertainment into this podcast.
Yeah,
and
man.
I feel like, I'm just blown away. You're just very well versed and had a lot of really good stuff to say, good advice, good perspective, and a real fucking perspective, a real attitude, a real experience.
Thank you, man.
And this is just great.
Well, I'm walking to your home. You're setting the tone. I thank you. I thank you too.
Fucking rock and roll, man.
Rock
We're
and
having
roll,
you
brother.
on again.
Woo, baby.
All right, well, thank you again, Brad.
All right,
we
signing
out.
off. Bye.
Peace.